So my husband and I decided that we would try to get disability insurance for me. We went through all the rigmarole of filling in the forms and the health exams only for the insurance agent to reject me, saying to me, "I don't understand why you need disability insurance. You're just a housewife." Immediate smoke coming out of my nose. It occurred to me in that moment, he did not understand the societal impact of this work. He suggested to me that if something were to happen to me, because there's no loss of revenue, there's no loss. And it was a moment that changed my life forever. I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't unknow it.
Welcome to the award-winning podcast where motherhood meets reinvention. I'm your host, Sharon Macey, and this is Mom to More. I chat with remarkable moms who've embraced the art of reinvention, crafting their more by leveraging the skills they honed as stay-at-home moms. They share their experiences, struggles, and successes as they return to former careers, rediscover old passions, and chart entirely new paths, offering you the motivation and inspiration to help you answer the question, what do you want to do when your kids grow up? Hey listener, big news. Mom to More is now an award-winning podcast, taking home a Silver Signal Award for curators shaping culture. It proves that mom reinvention isn't just personal, it's powerful. And if you're new here, welcome. You'll want to be part of this journey, so go ahead and hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. And now, on to the show. Hey, welcome back to a new episode of Mom to More. Okay, guys, this is such a treat today. My guest this week has a fabulous story, and it all started with a rejection, which will probably make your jaw drop because it did mine, because stuff like this is still happening in America today, which is crazy. But first, Lori Sugarman-Li believes deeply in the power of families and is a passionate voice in the cultural shift aiming to articulate the value and visibility of unpaid work. And all of you moms out there, you know what I'm talking about. Her career as a communications strategist combined with a decade devoted to full-time care of her family, her community, and children's charities worldwide served as the inspirational backdrop for her professional relaunch as a coach, speaker, and author. She is dedicated to fostering meaningful conversations within families, encouraging them to contemplate how they care for one another in their shared space. This is so cool. Lori and her husband and two sons are Canadian-born and live steps from Lake Michigan in Chicago. Hello, Lori. I'm so thrilled you're with me today.
I'm thrilled as well. Thanks for such a kind introduction.
Thank you. Well, first, we have to give a big shout out to Mom 2.0, which is where we met this past spring in Orlando.
Yes.
And you had those super colorful pants on. You could not be missed.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fantastic conference. Oh my gosh, I came away so inspired.
Yeah, it's my second year and it's really incredible. All right, so we know you have two boys and you dedicated a decade to full-time care of your family. Why was this time of leaning into family life important for you to have? And also, was it intentional or was it something you just fell into?
You know, it's so interesting. We were living in Canada at the time, and I was in the middle of what ended up being a 15-year paid career in marketing and strategy. I started my career at Kraft Foods, and then the 2.0 of my paid career was at Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, which was a fabulous gig prior to
I can
having
appreciate
kids.
that.
Yes. And then when I had my first baby, the Canadian mat leave, which might be interesting for a lot of your listeners, is a year long. And it's wonderful for many reasons. You really, really sink into it. But the return to work is actually a little bit more complicated after that much time. And the flexibility that I was looking for in negotiating with Four Seasons just wasn't available at the time. And the job as it had been for me involved so much travel, just wasn't right with a new baby for what our vision of our family dynamic was going to be. And I spoke to my husband about it, and we decided that I would make the very meaningful shift from the economy of commerce to the economy of care. And I took all of the, motivation and dedication that I had always applied to my paid work and applied that to my unpaid work. And, much to my surprise, I was really thriving in this role. And I became very involved, as you had said, in my community and in charities and local stuff. And then we had the opportunity to move internationally. So when my two boys were 2 and 4, we moved to London and had beautiful experience there, but, very much cemented by my involvement and raising my hand for everything at the school, in the community. That's how you form new connections. We had a second opportunity then to move internationally with my husband's company to Chicago, which is where we are based now. And every time we move, we have to sort of review our foundational family documents, wills, insurance, because of course it's different in every country. And when we moved to Chicago, my husband said to me, look, we don't have any kind of network here. We don't know anyone. We don't have family, friends, anything. Your role in the family is so critical. If God forbid anything happened to you, he said, I would have to take a leave and jump in. And so he said, let's look at getting you disability insurance.
Well, I want to pause right there, because before we jump into that, because that is sort of the crux of how everything began. But I want to backtrack a little, because when we first spoke, you mentioned that you were surprised by the fact that you loved leaning into family life. So talk about that.
I always knew I would be a mom and have a family. It was never a question, but I think I grew up imagining always being involved in paid work as well. And so it just sort of like the filling of my heart was sort of, unexpected to the degree that it was. And also the contributions that I could make in that role, the growth I experienced in that role was sort of like just unexpected. I think you don't know when you're going into that role how meaningful and impactful it's going to be.
So many moms feel that they're not working, therefore they're not being productive, therefore they're not learning anything, but that could not be further from the truth.
Couldn't be further. And one of the things, we'll talk more about my role as a coach now, but one of the things I really encourage moms to do is, we're so focused, especially in those early years, of capturing all of the milestones that our children achieve, right? And we have the baby book with all the like dates when they first smiled and rolled over and all the beautiful, meaningful things. I encourage moms to have a similar booklet or list for their own trajectory into this role. And every now and again, reflect and say, how have I grown? How have I evolved? What skills have I curated in this role? And I was really doing that and thinking, this is fabulous. And also, I had so many friends, exceptional women who were focused on unpaid work and doing phenomenal things in that role. And so for me, in my bubble, it was very, very much valued.
Yeah, which is so nice to hear. And I also love what you said earlier. You went from the economy of commerce to the economy of care. I think that is a beautiful way of phrasing just part of this huge job that you do as the home parent.
Well, thank you. I think it's so essential in our quest to have this work, and it is tons of work, be visible and valued. It's so critical for us to have a better understanding of the impact of this work if we do want involvement by the entire family and for it not just to sit on the shoulders of women.
Okay, so getting back to the crux of this,
yes.
I want to jump to your personal journey of becoming an advocate for the value of unpaid labor, because this is such an enduring issue that just transcends the generations, right? All right, so let's go back to the beginning and that moment with the insurance guy. Go.
So my husband and I decided that we would try to get disability insurance for me so that we would have a safety net if he were to leave his job. So we went through all the rigmarole of filling in the forms and the health exams and all the stuff that you need to do, only for the insurance agent to summarily reject me, saying to me, I don't understand why you need disability insurance. You're just a housewife.
Hair on fire.
Right. Like hair on fire. Immediate smoke coming out of my nose. And I was like, what?
Excuse me?
It occurred to me in that moment, he did not understand the societal impact of this work, and that this concept of disability insurance really only applies to people who are generating revenue. And he suggested to me that if something were to happen to me, because there's no loss of revenue, there's no loss. And it was a moment that changed my life forever. I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't unknow it. And that began my quest, where I started to find a lot of other phenomenal people, mostly women, in this work of talking about and making more visible and valued the work of care, the work that is invisible, the work that is unpaid.
So let's just give a couple of examples of what is this invisible work. We all do it, and you're going to say it and everyone listening is going to go, oh yeah, I do all that.
So two big buckets, really. First of all, so much of the work of care of our family, care of our household, care of our investments, like our car and whatnot, is done when children or other family members are, at work, at school, asleep, at play. And so it's happening sort of in the shadows, right? Like you probably have a load of laundry in, at 6 a.m. and you're probably, putting the dishes away at 11 p.m. And it's unseen. It all sort of happens magically. When my husband opens his drawer, the clean socks are just there, right?
It's sort of like the tooth fairy.
That's actually another terrific example, right? Is all those sort of magical moments, all the holidays that we plan, all the birthdays that we plan. And then the other big bucket is that so much of this work is invisible because it's in the mental, it's in the emotional. And so there isn't anything sort of tangible. There's nothing on the counter, on the bed that you can see, but it's this constant outpouring of care and concern that we bestow on those that we love, remembering their preferences, remembering the schedules, always showing up when somebody needs a ride or somebody forgot a lunchbox or whatever it is. It's this like ticker tape that's constantly running through our heads. Again, mostly women. We know from research that 75% of unpaid care globally, this is really not a US phenomenon. This is a global phenomenon. 75% of unpaid work rests on the shoulders of women, but that only measures what we can see. It doesn't even measure the mental and emotional load, which we know is an awesome load that rests on the shoulders of women. And I should also say that in pairing with that, women have 5 fewer hours of leisure time per week than men. And the cocktail of the two of those things is really impacting women's wellness. 80% of autoimmune diseases are diagnosed in women, twice the number of instances of stress, anxiety, and depression. And, I say women, but a lot of these things are being measured in girls as young as 8. And so the opportunity really is to start these conversations, to break these cycles for the next generation.
Tailgating on what you just talked about. You've lived internationally and you're Canadian. And so now even living in the States, you're living internationally. And that statistic that you said, like 75% globally of women do all of this invisible labor. How do you compare the different countries and cultures that you have lived in, on the value and acceptance of this unpaid work?
So there are, of course, nuances between countries. There are, so many that I haven't had the opportunity to live in, like the Nordic countries that we know take a different approach, somewhat to family life. But the overall sort of notion of the societal devaluing of care is a global phenomenon. It is something that I have certainly experienced. And, it's really this belief that has been bestowed on women that we are somehow better at this work, that we are wired for it, that we are better at multitasking, right? That we have this motherhood instinct, or this idea that mother knows best, baby wants mama. And it's this sort of universal language that, forgive me, it's beautiful to believe, but it's a bit of a scam to suggest that, men can't also participate beautifully in this work. And I think the reason that women are such beautiful caregivers is because we do it so much. We have the practice, and we do believe that this is sort of like an inherent ability. But if men would also believe this, then they would be able to show up in just the same way. It's not something that's been scientifically based.
And just like we were sort of trained over the millennium to have this role, obviously we give birth, so that's more inherent. But, men are trainable animals too. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, Lori. And when we come back, we are getting into the weeds about teaching kids and partners the importance of these tasks. And we're also going to talk about your book. Don't go away. And now a quick word from my sponsor, Ally Shoes. I gotta tell you, these are some of the most comfortable shoes I have ever worn. They're designed by women for women, like finally, right? And engineered with perfectly placed padding, so I can literally wear these all day. And I cannot say that for other brands I've worn. And I'm not the only one giving positive reviews. InStyle, Business Insider, and CNN are all saying the same thing. Oh, and they have a really cool origin story as well. So flats, heels, boots, you name it, they have it. Ally is letting me share the love with all of you. Head on over to Ally, that's ALLY.NYC, where new customers and listeners of the pod will get $40 off your first pair of heels. All their heels, like Classic, Kitten, Bold Block, Sexy Slingbacks, with special code MOMTOMORE40, and 10% off your first pair of boots and flats, so 10% off of each, with special code MOMTOMORE10. Ally is reimagining how comfort and function support women every day, and I love that. Thanks to Ally for sponsoring this episode. Okay, Lori, so when we first spoke, you mentioned something that really resonated with me. You began articulating what you have accomplished in a day and how you are growing from those tasks and those moments. How many of us have been asked by a well-meaning partner, so what'd you do all day? And we cannot answer it because we have done so much and so many little things that you do and you're not even thinking about it, and then you forget about it. And of course, we don't write it down. So there's no record of our work. There's no annual review. There's no promotions. There's nothing. I found that concept just so interesting. And I know that goes into your work and into the book.
Right. And that goes into the invisibility of the work. And the biggest opportunity that we have, especially as it relates to educating children about the weight and the beauty of the work of care, is to do it a little bit more loudly and really showcase the scope of it. I mean, it is just a tremendous amount of effort to care for our home, to care for our cars, to care for our family. And so what I like to suggest is, obviously making the invisible visible. And you can do little things like, I'm in charge of all of the laundry in my home. And I think I used to want to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother. And so I would do all the laundry. Right. I would fold all the laundry, and then I would put all the laundry away. But when all the laundry goes away, then there's absolutely no evidence of the cycle. So I thought, what can I do? Let me take one step back. So now I leave the folded laundry on the beds. So when everybody goes into their room, they can see my laundry has been done. There's effort behind this. There's magic behind this. And so it just gives like a little bit of visibility. The other thing I do is I very frequently now invite my kids into whatever task I'm working on, either to participate in it with me or just to observe and learn. And this has been huge at building their muscle and understanding the scope.
Those are skills that they will carry with them for the rest of their life.
That's the nucleus of all of this. I think, we're so tempted to sort of insulate kids and protect them from the weight of this work, because when they're little, we feel, like, let's just let them play. Don't, burden them with this kind of stuff. And then when they become a little bit older and get into high school, we think, gosh, they have to focus on their academics. They have to focus on their athletics or, their creative pursuits or whatever it is to get into college. We don't want to burden them. But if we're being honest with ourselves, holistic parenting is preparing them for that beautiful stage of life. If they get into a great college, but don't know that they have to change their sheets, with regularity, or
Or
don't know
do
how
their
to make themselves,
laundry. Yeah.
right, or don't know how to make
Yeah.
themselves a nourishing meal before an exam, they're actually not going to thrive. And then that will impact their contribution as future partners as well. So absolutely, you're right. The other two things that I recommend to parents, especially trying to educate kids, is this is so much more than a list of to-dos, right? The work of home and care is so much more than a checklist. There's meaning behind everything that we do. And if there isn't, by the way, then we shouldn't be doing it, right? If it's not relevant to us or important to us, get rid of it. But so I love to talk to kids about the why behind the work. So, for example, if I were to tell my 15-year-old, go change your sheets, that's annoying, right? That fitted sheet, navigating that. But if I were to say to him, buddy, I don't know if you're aware, but I wanted to let you know that sleeping on clean sheets facilitates clear skin. Then suddenly he understands not only why we do this, but, oh, this is actually for me. Like, I have stake in this. And guess what? The sheets are off the bed and, in the washer faster than you can blink. With little kids, it's like the example that I give is keeping the car clean. If you're doing carpools, pickups, drop-offs, and whatever, your car likely has like a lovely carpet of granola bar crumbs, maybe a wrapper, a banana peel. You can shout at the kids that the car is a mess, or you can explain to your kids how cars hold value. And as a family, the benefit that you will receive when you go to trade in or sell or whatever your car, you will get more value back as a family if it's in good shape than you will if it's not. And then you start to imagine what you can do with that extra value as a family, and it comes back to them.
And also, you can make it funny for little ones and say, I'm not sure when we go to trade in this car if they're really going to want the granola and that icky banana peel on the
I
floor.
love it. I
Right?
love that.
Yeah.
Yes. That's another huge opportunity is gamify things, may absolutely make it fun for kids. When I invite my kids in to do tasks, like, of course I want them to be listening to music or watching soccer highlights or whatever while they're folding laundry. Like, I want them to enjoy the moment. I don't want them to dread it. And that actually gets me to the third point that I want to share, which is that energy that we give to this work. I think a lot of families still call this chores, but the definition of chore really is dreaded, unappealing, repetitive, annoying work. But this is the work of nurturing and nourishing, right? And so the opportunity really is to change the energy that we give to it. I'm not suggesting it's not a heavy load. It is.
We
But
can
at
give it
its
a
heart,
kinder name,
that's it. At its
right?
heart, this is the work of gratitude for all that we have and for those with whom
Mm.
we share a space. So little tweaks go a long way.
Those are brilliant. It's just really rephrasing things in a kinder, gentler way, and in a way that everyone can really understand and get involved with that. Okay, so let's jump into your book. It's called
Okay.
Our Home. For those of us, for people watching on YouTube, there's a picture of it, and we're going to tell you how to get it at the end. So what I loved about it, Lori, is that it's an easy to comprehend read, clearly for kids of all ages. And what was the moment when you realized that all of the things you've been talking about needed to be in print?
So after I had the experience with the insurance agent, I knew that I wanted to contribute to the work of reframing the societal value of care. At the time, I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't have any kind of a platform. And so I had spent a lot of time reflecting as to how I could have a meaningful impact. I wasn't in a position to change government policy or corporate policy. And I kind of thought, what can I do? And then I thought, well, I've been full time with my kids for 10 years. I've been very involved in their schools, and I've been devoted to children's charities worldwide. I can talk to kids. And, there are a lot of grown up books talking about the division of labor and the reframing of stay-at-home mom and different stages of motherhood and the things that are impacting the wellness of motherhood. But I thought, if I can break the cycle for the next generation and teach kids from the start that this is not only beautiful work, but work for all of us, then I will have had that impact.
Yes. And I think if you even just change one person, you have had that impact. And I love it. And it's an easy, fun read. It rhymes, but it makes the point in a very subtle but loving sort of way. So speaking of words, let's talk about the language around labor in the home. And obviously, different families change how you approach the home, how to do the garbage, dishes, laundry, blah, blah, blah. How do you reposition how you talk about like the domestic tasks? And one thing you said, which I thought was so powerful, is that it becomes the two of you against the task versus one of you against the task and the other partner, because that automatically makes the other partner the bad person.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
It's defeated before you begin. So let's talk about that language.
So, in addition to being an author, I'm also a family coach, and I support a lot of loving couples who are starting to feel resentments creeping in because of inequity in the domestic load. And they feel it start to impacting wellness in the family and impacting the way that they relate to one another. And you just said exactly what it is that they allow the heavy load to come between them instead of facing it unified. And I really love to use Eve Rodsky's fair play system in a lot of the coaching.
And you are also
that
a fair
I
play
do.
facilitator, right?
I'm a fair play facilitator, and I studied with Eve, and she's been a fabulous mentor to me. In fact, she's the person who first read my manuscript and encouraged me to publish the book. She's been a tremendous champion of mine. And I love her system because what it really does is it makes the work of care take less time and take less space, because it is a system and a way of communicating that increases efficiency and reduces resentment. There wasn't necessarily a way to involve kids. So her book really focuses on partners. And I thought, gosh, I'd love to extend this to deal in the kids. And so a few language shifts that I really love for the whole family is we often use the word help. And somebody might say, well, my husband's actually a huge help, or, my kids sometimes help. And I think, at first, it seems like a really beautiful concept that, people are helping, but the implication really is that this work is ours, right? It is our load as women and mothers.
And then every once in a while, people will help us out.
Exactly. And, that our family is sort of waiting in the wings for our direction, for our instruction, for our lists. And what happens when you have helpers instead of owners and noticers is that really the work still stays on your mind and on your heart until it's done. And you can't really release it and experience the benefit of that release. And so the opportunity for families is really full task ownership. With partners, it's definitely a process, and it's a lot of discussions, and it's a lot of understanding about how you were raised and how your parents modeled things for you, and what societal definitions you believe, and sort of the unlearning of a lot of that. And also, again, the belief that this is valuable, beautiful work that contributes to your family's wellness, and that we all need to be a part of it. And when it comes to kids, I suggest, instead of inviting kids in to help, use language that's a little bit more collaborative and also empowering of them. Hey, I'm about to take on this task. Like, I would love to show you how I typically do it so that you can do it on your own someday. Or, hey, this is a big task I'm about to take on. Like, I would love your partnership, things like that.
I just noticed the word help was not in either of those two sentences.
Correct. It's sort of like a step away from that, such that, again, you imply that this is everybody's participation. And then on the flip side, when you're finished something, again, we love the concept of a thank you, and everybody wants to be thanked for effort and contribution. But that also goes back to the implication that you have done me a favor because this is my work. You did a little bit of it, and that was a favor to me, which is not necessarily the model that we want to cultivate. So, what I say to my kids when they have participated in something is I articulate the meaning that it had. I articulate the contribution that they made, the power in their effort. So, not as a favor to me, but as something that contributed to the wellness of our family and the direct impact that they had. And also, I will, if it is something that saved me time, I will acknowledge that. But very specifically, I'll say, I thought I was going to have to fold that laundry. The fact that you did it saved me 45 minutes. And I want you to know what I was able to do in those 45 minutes. It was so meaningful to me. And I really am grateful that you stepped in.
And I also think saying to the kid, hey, you're really good at this.
Yes,
I'm really
exactly.
impressed. Right. And praising them for that. So they're like, okay,
Yeah.
positive feedback loop.
Yes, you did that so quickly. You did that so beautifully. I'm really in awe. Thank you for stepping in. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So, because I know you do coach kids as well, like couples, families, kids. Have there been any memorable things that the kids have said to you about the work that you're doing with them?
Well, the kids that are most involved in and benefiting from this work that I have started to do are my own. And you'll see on my Instagram page that they are actually very involved in a lot of the scenarios and the lessons that we share about how our family flows. And it's really incredible how their muscles really have built since we started speaking differently, more sharing this work more loudly. And they really have become noticers and owners, and they take a lot of pride in this. And I want to reiterate, this is not about pawning off work onto kids. This is about empowering them, letting them know that they're trusted, building those skills as you had articulated for their future independence, for their future partnerships. And also, what I want to say is, very often we look at this work of tasks of home as the stuff that we have to do to get to the stuff that we want to do. But I like to suggest that this actually is the beautiful stuff. This is the stuff of bonding. This is the stuff of connecting.
Stuff of family.
I lost my dad 10 years ago. And most of the beautiful memories that I have of him are of us collaborating around the home. We had tasks that we shared where I felt trusted and where I was learning from him. And really, these are the beautiful moments. These are the moments where you should take pictures and create memories together.
Right. Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a really nice suggestion. So, question for you. If someone had told you 10 years ago or longer that you would be doing this important work right now and be a published author, you would have said,
oh gosh, I'm so incredibly grateful for the opportunity. I really feel like the universe sort of wanted me to do it. Had I known 10 years ago what I know now, I think I would have been a lot healthier. I think, I was really guided in that early motherhood stage by the notion of depletion being a virtue, and that motherhood and caregiving were inextricably linked and really mostly mine.
Detriment, health-wise.
To
So many reasons,
absolute detriment. But I believed what society was saying about the notion that I was better at it, the notion that my kids wanted it from me. And I am doing all of this now for that mother that I was 15 years ago, who didn't have this community, who didn't have this information, who wasn't empowered in this way, and who was, writing thank you notes for baby gifts at midnight because I just thought that I had to, when I'm sure those people that I was writing to, if they knew how exhausted I was, they would have said, oh my God, please don't send me a thank you note. Like, go to sleep.
Interesting. So something that you didn't necessarily see coming, your reinvention, but what you're doing is just it's so beneficial to the world and to families. And I would recommend people getting that book because it's such an easy read and it seems so simple to start to implement. And just with a change of like verbiage, I thought that was really special. Okay, Lori, unfortunately, our time is drawing to a close. I feel like I could chat with you all day, but I have a question that I ask all the amazing moms I have the privilege of interviewing. And that is, since this is the Mom to More podcast, Lori Sugarman-Li, what is your more?
My more is really centered in the regeneration of gratitude and its impact to family wellness. And my how is through sparking powerful conversations for families on how we care for one another and the space that we share.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. And tell our listeners where everyone can find you online, where can they find the book? And folks, everything is going to be in the show notes. All the links, everything will be there.
Thank you so much. So my book, Our Home, The Love, Work, and Heart of Family, which you very kindly suggested is for kids of all ages. And I love that you think it can inspire beyond just the little kids. It's available everywhere books are sold. My Instagram is at Our Home, Our Pride. And as I mentioned, I do a lot of fun videos about how our family flows and how I talk to my kids. And I hope that inspires you in your own home. And if you're interested in some of the articles that I've written, you can find me on LinkedIn at Lori Sugarman-Li.
Fantastic. Lori, this has been so interesting. I'm so thrilled that we connected with your very colorful pants at Mom Too. And actually, I think we connected even before the summit began. We had identified one another as we need to meet each other while we were there. Yeah, we did. Your work is so important. And I'm going to be sharing this with my kids as they move on and have partners and have families of their own, because I think it's that important. So thank you for your time and your wisdom today. Really appreciate you.
I'm so grateful for the chance to connect with your community. It means so much. Thank you very much.
I'd like to read another 5-star review. This next one is a little special. It's from my eldest daughter. Yeah, my own kid took to Apple Podcasts and she wrote this, and I could not be more proud or moved. And she wrote, "Mom, I'm so proud of you. I'm in awe watching you dedicate yourself to this new venture. But I'm not surprised because you raised me to be kind and ambitious, and above all, to bring people up with me. This podcast is the culmination of all the work I watched you do growing up and is an inspiration as I go through the beginning stages of my career." Thank you, sweetheart. And as I always say before, if you keep writing these 5-star reviews, I'll keep reading them. Hey, this wraps another episode of Mom to More. If this conversation sparked something in you, hit follow or subscribe and leave a quick 5-star review to help more moms discover the show that's shaping culture. And remember, you already possess the skills and experience you need to start on this journey, because reinvention doesn't have an age limit.